May 1st, 1945, Berlin, Germany, 12:27 a.m. Oh my god, he's a part of the SS? Those guys were like some real Nazis. Holy shit. Grant us victory. Grant us victory. Sieg Heil Victoria. Please don't clip that. Through a red veil. We smacked each other around so much our hands themselves broke. We've had bones poking out of our skin, but we just kept at it. My eardrums had shattered long ago. I was lost in a world of noise and violence. I heard the voice earlier from again, more clearly than ever. Damn. I could do nothing but stare up at my headless body as it spewed forth in blood. Ah, my heart was still beating. I wanted nothing more than extend my hand to my body. I jolted out of bed, only to find that it was already light outside. I immediately reached for my neck. It was, of course, still attached to the rest of my body. Imagine me reaching for my neck and feeling.
Hello, this is Crumb, and welcome back to the third part of Dies Irae, Acta Est Fabula. Sorry for the late upload, but stuff happens. I'll try to keep more consistent with what I say. New mic, so sorry if there's any problems with that. Hopefully, we'll finally get to something that continues the story, because I have no idea where it's going. And it's been, jeez, 3 hours? It's currently 7:20 a.m. Katsumi and I sit at the table, about to get started on the rice, grilled fish, and miso soup that she had made. Truly a Japanese breakfast, if I had ever seen one. It was about 30 minutes from our apartment complex to the school, so right now we could afford to spend 10 minutes eating, 10 minutes cleaning up, and 10 minutes getting ready. You're genuinely indecipherable.
Huh?
I said. Katsumi took a sip of tea, washing down the rice that had been stuck in her mouth. Had anyone ever taught this girl the first thing about manners? What do you mean stuck in her mouth? It's rice. Just swallow it, dog. If memory served, it had been covered in blood and dust in addition to being ripped all over. Our uniforms were made from white cloth, so it would have been hard to miss. Dude, it's been like a couple weeks since I played the intro. That genuinely had me like shell-shocked. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And I just remembered he had that fight to the... basically to the death with Shiru.
クリーニングでよく片付いたな。新しいの買おうかと思ってたのに。
そう言うだろうと思って注文もしといたけど、なんか少し時間がかかるって言われたから。新品が来るまでちょっとみっともないけど、これで我慢しなさいね。
Katsumi placed the folded uniform that had been lying next to her on my lap. I opened it up to find that it had been patched together here and there.
何その顔。
いや、もしかしてこれ、お前が？
悪いかこの文句あるか？
文句は別にないけどさ。
While Katsumi's cooking was more or less edible, her sewing skills left a lot to be desired. You know, that's one thing about sewing, is you know how well you did at sewing. Pride be damned, you know deep down in your soul if you did a shit job at sewing. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. It's basically impossible to do good at sewing, but you can't act shocked when somebody calls shit sewing shit because, well, like I said.
まあ、ありがとう。あとは冬だし、ずっとコートでも着てりゃいいかな。
授業中もそれって校則違反じゃない？
Honestly, this might sound stupid. School uniforms are kinda cool. Like, yeah, that sucks, you can't wear whatever you want, but like, it does add some, I don't know, like a nice sameness factor. I always thought it was chill.
硬いこと言うなよ。病み上がりなんだ、俺は。
昨日は病人扱いするなって言ったくせに。
Katsumi shot me a glare, then proceeded to begin chowing down on the single tarako on her plate.
辛い。
Well, of course it was.
っていうかお前、それ二人で分けるんじゃないのかよ。何一人で丸ごとトライしてるんだ。
やかましいわね。あんたには絶対やらない。これうちのお母さんがくれたんだからね。
And so she began nibbling on her tarako, without even using rice to soften its taste. You're such a furry Katsume. She looked like she was about to burst into tears.
お前頭大丈夫か？
大きなお世話です。バカ。
She turned her whole body away from me in her chair. She apparently had no further intention of speaking with me. Not that I really gave a shit. Would have been nice if she could stop mumbling stuff like, so spicy, but so good, while acting like that, though. It's kind of creeping me out. Since Kasumi had retreated into her own little world, I found myself without anything to do while we ate breakfast. I decided to check out what was on the news, which had been playing in the background this whole time. Unfortunately, there wasn't much that caught my interest. Mostly just the usual about the weather and whatnot. And, for an average citizen like myself, even the sensational news about corrupt politicians and celebrities caught having affairs wasn't really that exciting or relevant. Since there was nothing interesting on TV, I decided to see if Kazumi had stopped acting like a child yet. But right when I was about to shift my focus toward her...
され、死亡。
Brr? Whoa, hold the phone. What'd they say?
昨夜遅く、諏訪原市の公園で男性の他殺死体が発見され、同市警は殺人事件として捜査を。
The music got really intense. Wait, had there really been a homicide in Swahara? Dog, it's a city. Of course there's homicides. I guess it's Japan, so they cover them up a lot. I guess his reaction's valid.
現在のところ、通り魔的なものであるとの見解がなされており、それというのも被害者の頸部が切断されるという猟奇的な犯行であることから、
Jesus.
凶器の断定はまだできていないとのことですが、おそらくは鋭利な刃物、日本刀、もしくはそれに類する刃渡り60センチ以上の刀剣であるという説が有力視されています。
I feel like a machete would be a much better assumption. Like, yeah, this guy's head got cut off. Katana. Huh? Motherfucker, like, I don't know, a big ass machete or like an axe or something I feel like is a more rational conclusion.
なお、被害者の男性は諏訪原市の会社員、生野健二さん24歳であり、死因は頸部の切断による。
I stared transfixed at the news report as it elaborated on the details, but the sound of a plate shattering shook me out of my trance. Kasumi must have dropped it. One could hardly blame her for being surprised. Here we are eating breakfast as usual, and all of a sudden the news starts going on about the gruesome details of a homicide. Sohara City Park, the site of the murder, was a place most residents were very familiar with as well. So, Kasumi's reaction is very normal. The details of the incidents, however, were far from normal. They said the cause of death was decapitation. So in other words, his head was cut off? There are no other wounds on the body, and the act must have been carried out swiftly. Maybe the guy got the culprit. Maybe the culprit got the guy as they were walking by each other, or snuck up on him from behind. Or they could have knocked out the victim first. I couldn't be sure of the exact details, but if the murder weapon was a sharp blade like the newscaster had said, it seems safe to say that the victim had been beheaded in one clean strike. You'd need nigh superhuman strength in order to pull something like that off. The culprit would have had to have some sort of giant bodybuilder, and a guy like that walking around with a katana or something would definitely attract attention. Yet, according to the newscaster, there are no reports of anyone suspicious in the area at around the time of the murder. So what? Had they set up a piano wire trap in advance or something? Oh. I understood what he said, but my mind immediately went to like a comically large piano. I'm like, didn't you just contradict yourself? Also, why is he asking so many questions, dog? I guess that's valid, but it's like, wait, so they must have been doing this. My hand shot to my neck. Here I was, trying to come up with some realistic scenario to explain the murder. More accurately, I was trying to come up with an explanation that didn't involve that. I was trying to avoid thinking about the implement that one couldn't help but associate with beheading. I had seen it myself at the museum. Hell, I even had a dream involving it the night before. The guillotine that had stood so imposingly amid the execution grounds in my dream. I could still remember it severing my head in vivid detail. I'd woken up to find that someone really had been decapitated. Is this just a coincidence? Just something I could laugh off as not concerning me? After all, I'd seen the same girl in both real life and my dream. It was already apparent that the boundary between the two was thinner than we thought. Who could prove that what happened in a dream couldn't also occur in reality? Common sense? Also, who is we? Bitch, you thought! In other words, my dream had been...
レン、もう行こう。遅刻しちゃうよ。
Kasumi is right. It wasn't healthy to keep going down this unrealistic line of thought.
わかった。着替えるから部屋戻っててくれ。
別に照れなくてもいいのに。
うるさいな。それより。
はいはい。玄関使いでしょ。面倒だから嫌ですよ。とりあえず先に食器だけ片付けとくね。
Even our typical morning routine somehow felt strained.
ほら、もたもたしてない。さっさと行く。
I guess that is real. Having a murder take place next to you is really weird. Cause like, I don't know, about a year ago, like one of my neighbors just got murdered in his house by like his son. That just fucking happened. It's like on the news and shit. I was like, damn. It's fucking freaky to think about that a person got murdered near where you live. Although I found it to be weirdly chill. I was like, oh Jesus, making me all paranoid. Then again, I mean, he did turn himself in like the next day, so it's not like a serial killer, but it's still weird. But unlike me, Katsumi wasn't the type to keep moping about forever. It was business as usual as she stood in front of the apartment, harassing me.
なんで男のあんたが私より準備に時間かかるのよ。
Misinterest. Honestly, that's so real though. Like, it takes a long time to get ready. I don't know how some guys are like, yeah, I wake up at like 7 and then I'm out the door by 7:02. What are you talking about? It takes me at least like 45 minutes to get ready.
あ、それともあれかな？もしかしてお化粧してたりしたのかな？
殴るぞ、お前は。
Did no one ever tell her that it was rude to make fun of other people's appearances?
そっちこそ少しはシャレっ気くらいつけろよな。いつも汗まみれで竹刀ばっかり振ってるから男じゃなくて女にモテ。
喧嘩売ってるわけ？
Did he just call her a lesbian magnet?
先に売ってきたのはお前だろうが。
何よ、昔はそれがいいとか言ってたような気がするのに。
気がするだけかよ。
I sure as hell never said that. Okay. Again, like, having a mean, not necessarily mean, but having like a back and forth is fun. And I have a few friends who I do that with. And it's chill. This is a really venomous back and forth sometimes, man. Like, it's usually supposed to be fun and games and occasionally you'll make too hard of a jab. Dude, these motherfuckers are like fucking vipers. Like, good Christ.
だいたいあんただって女の子にモテ。
なくても別にいい。特にお前には。
ちょっと何これ、ほんと可愛くないですよ。
だから可愛くなくていいんだよ。あと、これってなんだ？これは物か。
Oh,
yes.
yes.
この撲石野郎。
Brain cells are gonna start dying if I continued this conversation. I didn't feel like being late for school the day after I got back from being in the hospital, so I urged Katsumi along.
ほら、行くぞ。
はーい。って本当にコート着てきたんだね。まだそんなに寒くないのに。
今日は冷えるって言ってただろ。
そうだっ
It's
け？
December! Of course it's gonna be cold! It's only like the middle of winter. You're not gonna need your coat. They did, but I thought better of bringing up the news again.
俺、寒がりだしな。
And I'd rather people not see the patchwork mess I was wearing. I kept that last bit to myself. We walked for a bit until we hit a crossroads. This junction was in the heart of the city, so you could say that all the roads converged here and then split off again. The city was split neatly into blocks by the main streets crossing here, with a church and hospital on the side facing the mountains, and the park and amusement park on the side facing the sea. As long as you started from here, it was impossible to get lost. I figured one might expect this sort of thing from a city known as a tourist destination like Swahara. No one would bother visiting if it was impossible to make your way around. Of course, last night there had been a murder at the park on the seafront side of Swahara, favored by tourists. Not exactly the sort of thing that's good for business. The police were probably already on the move, looking for the killer. It'd be best not to walk around at night for the next few weeks, in more ways than one.
ね
Katsumi suddenly called out to me.
え、そっち方向違うよ。
は？
そっちはその。
Right. Of course.
悪い。
The fastest way to reach the school was to cut through the park, so I had instinctively started walking in that direction. Thank God Akatsumi had caught me. I had no intention of approaching a murder scene of my own volition.
久しぶりなんで道忘れたかも。
Motherfucker, you just said it's impossible to get lost.
よければ手とかは引いてくれると助かる。
あのね、バカな冗談言ってると本当に置いてくからね。もう。
No luck. I tried playing it off to lighten the mood, but all I managed to do is piss her off. Really? Mixed signals? Pissing off a woman? Impossible. In the end, though, Katsumi made sure I was following her the whole way to the school. I decided I should express my gratitude by offering her some important advice.
お前先に教室入れ。
は？
だから俺のことはもういいよ。気にしないで、ほら教室。
あんた何言ってんの？
わかんないかな。お前鈍いよ。
Maybe I couldn't really complain about Kasumi being so open, but at times, I wish she was a little more perceptive. It didn't even occur to her on the way here. Sometimes I just wasn't sure about this girl.
今俺と一緒に教室入ると、お前変な目で見られるぞ。
なんで？
なんでも何も。
Dude, you're overthinking it. Straight up, that's just not true. I guess technically, yeah. But that's some overcautious bullshit, man. Nobody cares. I was already enough of an outcast to begin with. And now here I was, coming back to school after spending 2 months in the hospital because I'd gotten in a huge fight with a classmate. It wasn't hard to predict what sort of response I would get.
そんなのと仲良くして変な噂立てられたくなかったら、ここは当たらず触らずって。
That's actually a good point. I take back what I said. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Katsumi was the sort of person with a strong sense of justice, a rarity in this day and age.
ムカつくな。私そういう考え大嫌い。ほらね、一緒に行くよ。
She grabbed my arm and started dragging me with her.
頼む。
She might have managed to make a nice entrance, emphatically swinging the door open and all. But things didn't go so well after that.
何かなこれ。
お前のテンションに引いてるってのが多分3割。
The other 70% went without saying. Fortunately for Kasumi, the world didn't care if one was in the right or not. My first day at school in 2 months was off to a stellar start. As I had expected, I didn't exactly blend into the classroom. I caught my classmates casting sideward glances at me more than a few times. Kasumi didn't know when to quit, so she kept trying to get me involved with things. But I would rather she just left me alone. It wasn't like I was getting off on the idea of being some aloof loner or whatever. But I wanted to take things easy for the time being. A form of rehab, in a sense. It was only natural for people to be wary around someone who had been involved in a violent incident. So I couldn't get angry at my peers. In fact, if they had started acting all friendly instead, it'd feel more like they were afraid of me in a way. And that wouldn't really sit well with me. I had never had any friends except for Kasumi, Shiru, and Himuro, and Himuro in the first place. Nothing wrong with the things staying as the way they were. So, Kasumi didn't need to keep up these futile efforts.
早く飯でも食ってこいよ。
だからレンも一緒に行くの。
I had the honor of being invited to lunch by my childhood friend, who just so happened to be a bit of a celebrity around school.
何が悲しくて一回も口聞いたことない女5人の集団に俺が混ざらなきゃならないんだよ。
それは誤解を解くために。
やめとけよ、バカらしい。
A group of girls, hell if I could remember any of their names, stood behind Kasumi, gazing at me suspiciously.
あれ、友達だろ。だったら嫌がらせみたいなことしてやるなって。
なんでよ、レンも私の友達じゃない。
そう言ってくれるのはありがたいんだけどな。
Was she trying to argue that a friend of a friend was a friend too? Or something? Come on. No, that's valid. I do think Ren is a bit in the wrong here. Like, I get it. But come on, man. You can't just be fucking antisocial. If your homie's like, yeah, come hang out with my friends. Okay. It's not that hard to blend in, dog.
とにかくこういうのは最初が肝心なの。あんたもこれを機にマイナスイメージを払拭して。
And start making your daily life into something meaningful. Blah, blah, blah. She just started going on with this stuff, like she was straight out of some sort of after-school special. No, thank you.
ちょっとレン、聞いてるの？
Okay, I was seriously starting to get fed up here. Oh my god. Alright, so this is the first decision. I genuinely didn't even think this game had decisions, but that's a crux of visual novels, I guess. So... Okay. I don't know if I'll do every ending to this game. That sounds like a nightmare. And I think there's also multiple legs to this game. There's a lot. This is a long, long, long game. So I'll try and do what's best, okay? Try to persuade her or run away. Running away is psycho and is just gonna piss Kasumi off. Here's the thing. I disagree with the main character. He's being a fucking weirdo. Just go hang out with them. Running away is not the answer. That's psycho and will totally make you weirder. So let's... She won't see reason, but... Let's see if we can persuade her.
俺は別に周りの評判なんか気にしてないし。
私は気にするの？
Damn. Egotistical jerk? You really care about your self-image that much? That I have to look good?
みんな何も知らないで勝手なことばっかり言ってんだから。悔しいのよ、そういうの。だからってほらちゃんとこっち見る。
Kasumi grabbed my face from both sides. Clearly, I wasn't getting off that easily. The idea of trying to persuade her had probably been doomed from the start.
あのな、俺はこれでも俺なりに。
何よ、なんか文句あるわけ？
Before I could respond with, of course I fucking do. My phone suddenly barged into the conversation with a
じゃあ悪い
beep.
のかよ。ほら、話せ。
Hell. What sort of reaction was that? I thought Kasumi was supposed to be sticking up for me, not treating me like some outcast herself. I shook her off and looked at my phone screen. She does seem like she's kind of like
悪いな、カス。
forcing pity on you.
戦略があったのを忘れてた。
ちょっと待ってよ。あ、こら、レン。
飯はまた今度誘ってくれよ。
I slipped past her and offered some parting remarks as I entered the hallway. I cast a glance to the side, only to find Kasumi's friends still staring at me. They didn't need to conspicuously avert their eyes as soon as they noticed I was looking at them. Jeez. See? It's just as I said. People's preconceived notions didn't go away that easily. And honestly, people weren't exactly mistaken in their perception of me. So trying to clear things up or whatever was a ridiculous idea to begin with. You're kind of right. Like, yeah, they're probably saying like, oh, he's a delinquent, he's a gangster, meh, 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 meh. But you did almost beat a kid to death. Vice versa, of course, but that's still fucking insane and you're kind of a scary weirdo. Even if you recounted that full story, I would still call you a scary weirdo because you fought that guy so hard you literally almost broke every bone in your body. That's insane. There's no need to expend a bunch of effort only to end up making things awkward for everyone involved. Like I was trying to tell her earlier, I did try to be considerate in my own way, since Kasumi had problems understanding the nuance of delicate situations like this. I mean, both are being a little unreasonable, but I think Kasumi's in the right. So, I wasn't happy with her trying to give me shit about it. Congratulations on getting out of the hospital. School is lonely without you. How are you feeling? There's some things I'd like to talk to you about, so I'll be waiting on the roof. By the way, no one else is around. Just the two of us? That's ominous. Just the two of us? Meow, meow. Just me and Fuji. Meow. Hurry on up, Himuro. It better be a man. What was I supposed to say to this? Looks like she hadn't changed a bit. Damn it! I wasn't sure whether I should heave a long sigh or start laughing. As a senior, surely she had something better to do than messing with her underclassmen. I really couldn't figure that part of her out. Like, true, I couldn't picture her getting stressed out over college entry exams or job hunting. So maybe that sort of carefree approach did suit her, but let's just say she took things too far. Well, anyway, the roof, huh? It'd be a little rude to just turn down her offer. And besides, I was looking for a way to give Kasumi the slip anyway. I climbed up the stairs and threw open the door to the roof. It was December. To put it simply, the roof was murderously cold at this time of year. Before I had taken my 2 months leave of absence, there were still plenty of students eating lunch up here every day, but obviously no one was crazy enough to... Oh yeah. I guess there was someone crazy enough to keep using the roof. I heaved a sigh as I searched for her. There she was, sitting on a bench by the fence and munching on a sandwich. Why did she pick the coldest spot on the entire roof to sit anyway? Bench? Oh my god, every time I see a random lone bench, that makes me think of...
Senpai.
I didn't get a response, so I went ahead and sat down. I'd been sitting next to her for nearly 10 seconds now, but she hadn't even looked in my direction, let alone tried to strike up a conversation. You've been there 10 seconds. Like, I've been here 10 seconds and she's just ignoring me. She didn't fall asleep. Right?
先輩
あう
は
寒い凍った温めて
For a moment, I considered just getting up and leaving. This was Rei Himuro, the senior who happened to be one of my few friends.
それ暖かそうね藤井くん貸してくれると私嬉しいっていうかむしろ貸せばか
Damn! This is about what you could expect from her.
正直ちょっと甘く見てた天気予報もなかなかやるねそれで藤井くん私とても寒いんだけど優しさ見せてはくれないの
No.
どうでしょうね
For all her claims that she was freezing, she wasn't shivering one bit, and her expression seemed more or less normal. I couldn't be sure of her intent, but she was eyeing my coat. That stare of hers was colder than any weather.
ちゃんと後で返すなら
Good one. Thanks to Kasumi's sewing job, my uniform underneath was looking more than a little fancy, but I didn't feel like getting into some sort of war of endurance. I stood up and took off my coat. I'm really curious what it looks like.
なんだったら二人で着るこう仲良く肩寄せ合って
遠慮しときますよ
I made my sense clear and stuck the coat on her.
暖かい藤井くんは優しいね
Man, Ren and his friends really like hitting on each other. Like, the occasional sex joke, okay, but this is ridiculous.
そっちはどう寒くない
暖かいって言ったら嘘ですね
じゃあ遠慮しないでほら入りなさい
Himuro flapped the hem of the coat, gesturing for me to join her. Did she just want to screw with me like this all day long?
で俺と何を話したいんです
さりげなく無視するのねまあいいけどまずは退院おめでとう綾瀬さんにはもう言われた
Oh yeah, this is also a chick who told me to, Kasumi to go on a date with me.
おかげさまで昨日しっかり
じゃあデートした
See?
おかげさまでそこそこしっかり
Why do I even open my mouth? You don't need me at this point.
そうよかった
Exactly what part of that was good was completely lost on me.
まあこれでも食べなさい
She offered me an egg sandwich. What was I? A dog being rewarded for a trick? Ew, egg sandwich. Fucking rancid.
しっかり食べないと大きくならない苦労するよいろいろと健全な精神は健全な体に宿るらしいし早く真人間になりなさいね
I guess, but shouldn't you tell me to get healthy first so then I can have a healthy mind? She was really laying it on today. Apparently, I didn't even qualify as a real human being. This is how you treat a motherfucker back from the hospital, by the way. Like, damn. Sorry, but I felt confident I was better at this whole human thing than she was, at least.
何
いや別に
思ったことは言いなさいよそんなだから喧嘩になる
Going for the jugular, damn.
ユサくんともどうせそうでしょ 食べてる？
一応。
I opened up the egg sandwich and gave it a few bites, offering a flippant reply in the process.
話したいことってのはそれですか？
そうって言ったら帰っちゃう？
微妙ですね。
I knew that wasn't a great answer, but I gazed up at the sky. Why was everyone trying to lecture me like this as soon as I got out of the hospital? Was what I did really that worrying? Yes, you almost killed your friend and he almost killed you. And you permanently ruined multiple friend groups by doing that. It's like, why is everyone lecturing me for almost killing my friend? Like, okay. I was sure most people would consider my scuffle with Shiro to be far more than a mere fight. But it wasn't like I had been singled out for violence by a group or anything. I can understand people who I wasn't particularly friendly with going out of their way to avoid me, or getting an earful from Kasumi. But I never expected Himuro, of all people, to go at it too.
先輩に説教ってのは似合いませんね。そっち系は霞だけで足りてますよ。あいつが2人もいたらマジで胃に穴が開く。
Hell, the main reason I came up here was to get away from her bitching.
苦労人だね。
おかげさまでね。
I dropped my shoulders inside. Hiru resumed eating her sandwich, as if nothing had ever happened. I guess that was about what I expected from Himuro. If I had to try to describe her, she was like a ghost. She possessed a certain indefinite nature, like she wasn't concerned with the events of the world around her. At the same time, she would occasionally act up, as seen earlier. The way she kind of kept her distance was similar to my own position on things, so I did get along with her better than I did Kasumi. That's why the two of us had managed to become friends.
さっきのはちょっと綾瀬さんの真似してみたの。君、めんどくさそうな顔しながらまんざらでもなさそうだし、そういうのが好きなのかなって一度試してみたかったから。でも似合わないならやめようかな。そんなに私変だった？
そりゃあね、だいぶ。
How are you supposed to react when the person lecturing you seemed like they're talking to thin air?
で、本当のところは何の用です？まさか霞のモノマネしたかっただけでもないでしょう。いや、下手したらあり得るけど。
うん。まあ用ってほどじゃないんだけど、聞きたいことが一つだけ。
She cast me a sideways glance, her tone flat as ever.
君とユサ君、どっちが勝ったの？
Neither. Neither, but you can make an argument for Shiro.
結構話題になってるのよね。月額最強決定戦。今のところ64でユサ君有利。でも復学してきたのは君だけだから、そのあたり揺れてるね。どうなの実際？
I didn't take Himuro for the type to get in on fads like this. Who won, me or Shiro? Well, if you took that to mean who was stronger, then...
俺ですよ。
Me when I lie.
本当に？
嘘ついてるとでも？
さあ、ただユサ君に聞いても同じことを言いそうだから。
Yeah, he might have. No, scratch it. He definitely would have.
怖い顔。やだね。これだから男の子は。勝ったの負けたの。そういうのがそんなに大事？肩こらないかな。プレッシャーだよ。
聞いてきたのは先輩でしょうに。
そうだけど。うん。そうだった。ごめんなさい。
Wow. An apology.
じゃあ質問を変えようか。どうしてユサ君と喧嘩したの？答えたくない？
そうですね。
It wasn't something I was willing to discuss with others. Himuro was the one who had found Shiro and me passed up out here and called an ambulance for us. So, in that sense, I was indebted to her, but that didn't really apply to this. Himuro sighed.
まあ三角関係のもつれとかそういうお手軽いネタじゃないのは察するけどね。君とユサ君そんなジャンルのキャラじゃないし、綾瀬さんモテそうに見えないし。
She didn't exactly mince words with that one. I figured it'd be best to try not to argue, though. Shiro and I weren't the type to get into fights for wholesome reasons like that. Oh, what do you mean by that? That implies that you got into unwholesome fights. If you consider a love triangle a wholesome fight, what the fuck is an unwholesome fight? And indeed, Kasumi wasn't popular. At least, not with us.
そんな君たちがなんでか友達だったのが不幸の始まりだったのかな。実は私前からこうなるような気がしてたよ。
Everyone already knew it was gonna happen.
だから神様は性格悪いなって思ってた。うん、今度一発君の代わりに殴っとこうか。遠慮しないで、善意だから。
そりゃどう思う？
Not exactly the sort of someone who lived in a church should be saying, but I didn't exactly feel obligated to stop her. If she wanted to punch out Jesus, then she could be my guest. As long as I wasn't the one receiving divine punishment over it anyway.
だいたい君に喧嘩なんて似合わないよ。怪我とかしたらみんな悲しむ。
That's surprisingly wholesome.
うちのシスターなんてきっとそっとするんじゃないかな。
シスター？
Did she mean the nun at the church? I'd only met her a few times before, but she was really something else. To say that she had model-like proportions would be an understatement. To put it simply, someone like her working as a nun was a great loss to the world. I wouldn't mind giving Jesus a sucker punch or two myself over that one.
名前何でしたっけ？
シスターリザ。青い瞳のボインボイン F カップ。
F cup? God, this really is a visual novel. Holy fuck.
ちなみに私は B カップ。
TMI?
そのうち大きくなるかもしれない。
I kept quiet. There's no sense in crushing her dreams.
で、その F カップさんは元気ですか？
B カップは興味ないの？
それはとりあえずノーコメントで。
I rolled up the wrapping paper for the egg sandwich I'd been eating and tossed it into the pocket of the coat Himuro was wearing. Not missing a beat, she proceeded to hand me a tomato sandwich. Ew!
今寝込んでるよ。お見舞い来る？
Fucking gross. A tomato sandwich?
風邪ですか？
ううん、そうじゃなくて。
She took out another sandwich. Where the hell was she keeping all these sandwiches anyway? And then, with the same unwavering blank expression on her face, she dropped a bombshell.
殺人事件見ちゃったから。
Oh.
ニュース見てない？公園で殺人事件。首バッサリ、血がドバー。怖いね。私も食欲なくなるよ。
She said, happily chowing down on the tomato sandwich. Whatever, that wasn't the issue here.
見たって、つまり犯人を？
ううん、そっちじゃなくてやられた方。 つまり
死体を？
第一発見者。私もね。
She nodded casually. If this was true, we're talking about some serious shit. This was the sort of thing that could traumatize someone for life.
おかげで私、一晩中警察で事情聴取。リザはあんなだから先に返しておいたけど、大丈夫かな。ちょっと心配。
それより先輩は平気なのか？
私は寝不足なだけ。カツ丼くれるかなと思ったけど、あれってドラマの中だけなんだね。がっかりしたよ。
Well, that's usually if you're the fucking culprit. You just found the body. It's not like this random high schooler cut off this guy's head. You're questioning some random high school girl.
どうしたの藤井君。変な顔して。
She was a weird one here. I mean, I'd always thought she was a little off, but...
もしかして本当に話したかったのはそれなんですか？
どうかな。話の流れで思い出したから言ったんだけど、もしかしたらそうかもしれない。容疑者扱いされてショックだったし、ちょっと愚痴ってみたかったのかも。ねえ私、愚痴っていいかな。
まあいいですけど。
A murder case. There are a few topics less suitable for mealtime. Honestly, wasn't something I really wanted to hear about either. Unfortunately, I couldn't avoid feeling curious about the matter. I couldn't seem to rid myself of the thoughts about that dream. I decided to go ahead and listen to what Himuro had to say.
11時過ぎだったかな。あそこの夜景が好きだからよくリザと見に行くの。いつもはカップルばっかりでたまに時間とか出るんだけど、昨日はなぜか誰もいなくて。
What do you mean, even a molester or two from time to time? You can't just kind of be like, yeah, there's just a molester. What? That's not just a thing you encounter in the park. At least I don't think it is it?
思えば嫌な感じがしてたんだよね。寒いのに生暖かいっていうか、ちょっと変な雰囲気で。あの時に帰らなかったのは失敗だったよ。後悔してる。
Himuro began her story, an uncharacteristic hint of self-desertion in her voice. The park she was talking about wasn't the sort of place housewives took their kids to. It was a seaside park that offered a view of the opposite shore and its various attractions, like the Sky High Tower, the amusement park, shopping mall, resort hotel, and so on. As such, it was generally utilized as a date spot, teeming with people late into the night. It would seem that was not the case last night, however.
橋のたもとあるじゃない。ほら、よく君とユサ君がバイクで遊んでたところ。あそこって不意に暗くなるんだよね。地元の人間でもあまり知らないような場所。街の死角っていうのかな。とにかく現場はそこだった。最初に気づいたのはリザの方。彼女が言うにはスプレーかと思ったらしいよ。落書き結構多いから。でも実際はそうじゃなくて。
A wall dyed in red paint, a sticky, gelatinous torrent of foul smelling.
私の第一印象はコルク抜いたばかりのシャンパンかな。線が外れちゃってるっていう感じで、少し離れたところに転がってたよ。こうゴロンと。首って結構飛ぶんだね。それに血もいっぱい出るんだ。驚いた。
Blood made up about 8 to 10% of a person's total weight. For an adult male, that would have been around 5 to 6 liters. It was no stretch to say that they had come across a literal sea of blood. That's such an interesting piece of dialogue. Because, like, the character is obviously not painted to be a nerd. He's like, blood makes up about 8 to 10% of a person's total weight, so it would have meant there was 5 to 6 liters. Like, huh? What are you talking about?
よく失神とかしなかったですね。
女の方が血に耐性があるんだよ。あといざという時の度胸もね。とにかくそのまま帰るわけにもいかないから警察に電話して家まで送ってもらおうと思ったんだけど。
任意同行を求められて朝まで事情聴取ですか。
そう、失礼しちゃうね。丸腰の女二人にあんなことができるわけないのにさ。
She meant cleaving off someone's head in an instant like that. According to the news.
日本刀かそういう感じの刃物なんじゃないかって。
そうらしいね。だから今博物館を調べてるんじゃないのかな。何か亡くなった展示品がありはしないか。もしくはどれかに血痕があったりするんじゃないのか。
I want to laugh that idea off, but circumstances made it difficult.
その推理ちょっと漫画的な気がしますけど。
Why would it be a museum exhibit? I imagine it can't be that hard to get your hands on a katana. Or like a blade. And wouldn't you just think this is like a gang crime? Like, who's thinking, oh, there's just some serial killer with a big ass sword? No, it's probably like a gangster.
でも同じ町にあれだけ凶器を置いてるところがあるんだし、無視するわけにもいかないんじゃないのかな。
She had a point.
そのあたり、藤井君はどう思う？昼間あそこに行ったんでしょ？
どうって。
何か思い当たることはなかったの？例えば伝説の妖刀がこっそり紛れてそうな雰囲気とか。
Does a big ass guillotine blade count as a magic sword? Even overlooking the ridiculous example, I couldn't tell if she was being serious or not.
藤井君？
Oh! Jeez, I almost forgot to show you guys. CG.
いえ、特には。
そう、ちょっと残念。
As ever, her disinterested tone was at odds with her words. Himuro resumed eating. I simply looked up at the sky. Grisly decapitation. This was sort of abnormal, gruesome event that would give you goosebumps just even thinking about it. Anyone living in Suhara must have been scared out of their wits. After all, murders this bizarre rarely ended up with just one victim. For all we knew, another body could turn up tonight. And I might have been involved.
実際みんな落ち着かない感じだね。きっとしばらく部活とかは中止になるよ。もし周りの子たちが藤井君を過剰に怖がってるような感じなら、それはきっとそういう理由もあるんだよ。
俺は別にそんなことはどうでも。
そうなの？じゃあどうして元気ないかな。おかしいね。ああ、もしかして綾瀬さんと喧嘩でもした？
違いますよ。
嘘ばっかり。
She threw the coat she had been wearing over my head.
ダメだよ。好きな子には優しくしないと。物騒なんだし、君が守ってあげなくちゃ。
What the fuck? Now, somebody cut your eye. Weird. there's something, like, uncanny about her. I don't know how I feel.
じゃあね、藤井くん。コートありがとう。あと、話聞いてくれてありがとう。本当は、うん。私も少し怖かったから、おかげで気が紛れたよ。
If only Kasumi could have such delightful moments. Himuro gave me a rare grin. She seemed just a little embarrassed. If she acted like this all the time, she'd establish a fan base in no time. You're a fucking freak. Well, that aside.
俺の好きな女とか勝手に決めないでくれますか？俺は別に霞なんか。
はい、それも嘘。とにかく、いい加減裏に回る癖を直しなさい。もうユサくんはいないんだから。じゃあね。
With that, Himuro left the roof behind. I heaved a sigh. In the end, I really was just lectured the whole time. It's kind of miffed. Fucking mythical word pull. Miffed? Dude, whoever translated this game needs a fucking Pulitzer Prize. That is a beautiful word choice. It's cold as hell on the roof, but I'd lost the will to return to class, so I just decided to skip. Apparently, I'd fallen asleep at some point. I opened my eyes to see.
おいおい。
Oh my god. I couldn't believe myself. It's already completely dark out. It's lucky I didn't get sick. Maybe it is true what they say about idiots not catching colds. Never heard of that saying. I rose from the bench I'd been lying on. I checked the time on my phone. 6:30 p.m. It wasn't terribly late, but seeing how it was winter, it's already pitch black outside. In the distance, I could still see the lights in the school offices. The idea of being caught by a teacher wasn't appealing. I had enough lectures for one day. I headed back to the classroom to pick up my stuff, only to find... You moron! Go and get held back a year for all I care! Yeah! A lovely note from Kasumi, taped to my desk. But she had no reason to be concerned. My grades were better than hers. Since this was a college prep school, they were willing to turn a blind eye to most things, as long as you did well on the tests. Honestly, that's most schools. As long as you get good grades, they don't fucking care. That said, the incident of Shiru might not have fallen under most things. But setting that aside, I tore the note off the desk, rolled it up, and launched it at the trash can. I totally sunk the free throw. I left the classroom after paying my respects to Kasumi's rancorous missive. Oh! Another beautiful pick. God, I love the word choice of this game. The school is more than a little creepy at night. No wonder so many people reported ghost sightings during the summer months. I wasn't a fan of ghosts myself. If I had to say why, it's because they're immune to physical attacks. You could try punching them, kicking them, whacking them with a bat, whatever. They wouldn't do a damn thing. Meanwhile, they were able to mess with us all they wanted. You could hardly call that playing fair. Surely, I wasn't the only one who found that a bit unsophisticated. As I was walking down the hall, entertaining myself with silly ponderings on ghosts, something outside the window caught my eye.
剣道場?
The lights were on. Himuro had said that club activities would probably be suspended, which meant...
霞か.
I couldn't think of any other explanation. Surely she wasn't trying to develop some new technique to take on the murderer on the loose, right? Unfortunately, I couldn't just leave her here now that I knew. What Himuro had told me earlier was still on my mind too, I guess. Setting aside the issue of whether or not she really needed me escorting her, we took the same path back home anyway. Something is gonna be really bad here. I found just the person I was expecting to find in the dojo, but...
これ、ミスったかな。
I had come here thinking we'd go through our usual routine, with me giving her a hard time and sidestepping her subsequent scolding. Kasumi, however, was clearly not in the playful mood right now. When it came to kendo, she didn't cut corners or make compromises. She handled her bamboo sword with a quiet dignity, with nary a trace of her usual rambunctiousness demeanor to be found. Staring at her steadfast expression, I found myself starting to understand why the younger girls swooned over her. It felt like it would be wrong somehow to call out to her, so I just leaned against the shoe rack and watched her practice. I wasn't very familiar with kendo, but if memory served, that pose was the Saigen Kamai, one of the most basic techniques. She sure was diligent. Here was someone who placed in national tournaments, staying late in order to practice their fundamentals. Well, I guess that was probably part of why she was so strong. I've been watching her for a few minutes now. She had probably been practicing for much longer, of course, but her form hadn't wavered a bit. It called to my mind the image of a Buddhist priest meditating. Was this what they called clearing one's mind? As I watched her, I suddenly wondered if she had some specific reason for going out of her way to maintain a steady presence of mind like this. I mean, that was the kind of idea in martial arts in general, but...
本当に強いやつは何もしなくたって強いんだよ。
I recalled what Shiro had once said while watching one of Kasumi's matches.
最初から強いやつにはリハも稽古も必要ない。武道は弱いやつが強くなろうとする手段で、だから精神論が幅利かすのさ。礼に始まり、礼に終われって、そういう具合に。元が弱いから力に耐性ないんだろうな。自分を律するのが最優先で、それができなきゃ破綻する。哀れすぎるぜ。まあ仕方ないとは思うけど。つまり、霞はそっち系だ。背伸びしてるあたり可愛いけど、生まれつきじゃないから無理してる。誰かさんとは違うのさ。まったく、なんでこんなことになったのかね。うさぎちゃんに夢見せたのはどこのドイツだ？なあ、レンちゃん。
I mean, at that point, why don't you just fucking blow your head off if you're not good at anything? What's the point of living if you think that it's futile to get better at something? Sure, it's true that to become the best at anything isn't possible unless you were born good. You can spend your entire life painting and you can become a truly phenomenal painter, but you just can't emanate something with true talent. But what's the point in giving up if that's the case? There's nothing wrong with not being the strongest. There'll always be someone better than you. You just have to accept that. No wonder Shiro is miserable. Still remember the grin on his face as he nudged me with his shoulder. In retrospect, maybe I should have decked him right then and there.
お前、責任取ってやれよ。 そもそもあんなことやったから。
Oh, give me a break. Where the hell did he try to get off lecturing me about this? Whose fault did he think it was, anyway? Pissed me off hearing about that sort of thing coming from the mouth of a risk-obsessed psychopath like him. You need to realize he was nothing more than a fucking dumbass who liked complicating things for the hell of it. This is why I...
あれレン
Shit. What the hell was I doing?
どうしたのっていうか、いつからいたの？
悪い。ちょっと声かけづらくて。
Dude, Kendo looks so fun. Like, of all of the, I guess you could say martial arts, but it's not even really martial arts. Of all of, like, the sword art, like, sword fighting competitions, Kendo is the coolest. Fencing is gay as shit. I'm sorry to say. Fencing is for pussies. Kendo, you get to fucking just strike each other with wooden swords. That's tough as hell. Fencing, like, Stupid. Honestly, I'd love to do Kendo myself, but hard to find a place to do that around here. I had to be out of my mind, suddenly going on a trip down that particular memory lane. Pulled my fist out of the shoe rack, my gaze wavering. This was beyond embarrassing.
一緒に帰ろうぜ。物騒だろう、一人だと。
どうしたのよ。変だよレン。珍しいよ。あんたがそんなこと言い出すなんて。
いや、夜道はおっかないからお前に守ってもらおうかなと。
ほほー。つまり何？あんたは自分が怖いから私にガードしてくれと？あんたが私を守るんじゃなく？
Aren't you the one always glazing your strength?
その通り。
Kasumi snapped.
この軟弱者が！それでも男が恥を知れ！
Fuck you.
あと今思い出した。あんた午後の授業サボったでしょ。どこ行ってたの？
屋上で寝てたんだけど。
は？屋上？信じらんない。何こいつ。呆れた。めまいがするよ。わかった。もういい。ちょっとそこで待ってなさい。着替えてくるから。
Kasumi stomped off to the changing room. I could have sworn I heard the earth shake. She poked her head back out. I understand you meant to imply that she was angry. Dog, that was a fat joke. But again, her fat ass made the earth shake.
覗いたら奥義食らわすからね。
Bam! She slammed the door shut. Well, I guess this turned out more or less how I originally envisioned it. Seemed Kasumi was back to her usual self, if nothing else. Now I just need to stop worrying about stuff in the past myself.
それじゃあお世話になりました。
Kasumi thanked the dojo, locked it, and then headed my way.
お待たせ。どう？何か食べてく？
いや、せっかくだからかすみが何か作ってくれよ。
でもそれだと遅くなるよ。
別にいい。どうも俺他の料理が口に合わない。
そうなの？
そう、昼飯は適当だったし腹減ってる。慣れないもんは食いたくないよ。
Such an odd thing.
だからかすみの料理がいい。
でも買い置きないし。
面倒か？だったら外食で我慢するけど。
いや、そうじゃなくて、なんか照れるね。参ったな。そういう風に言われると下手なもの作れないっていうか。
Kasumi squirmed about for a bit, but soon collected herself.
よし、だったら私頑張っちゃうよ。
頼むわ。
Thank God she was so simple-minded. Afterward, we picked up some groceries at the supermarket and headed home together. Couldn't have been much later than 7 p.m., but there were surprisingly few people still out and about on the streets.
やっぱりみんな怖いんだね。
だろうな。
You'd have to be crazy to want to go strolling about in a city where there's been a brutal murder the previous day. The smart thing to do would be to stay inside with your doors locked tight. Thinking about it this way, Kasumi and I were being pretty careless going out at night like this, even if we were together.
先生もね、犯人が捕まるまでは各自まっすぐ帰りなさいって。
What else would they say?
でもだったらお前、なんで居残りなんかしてたんだよ。
それはさ。
She better not exactly mimic what Ren thought.
なんかもう日課になっちゃってるもんだから、今更やめるのも半端だし。
Okay.
それにほら、もしかしたら犯人逮捕とかできるかもしれないし。
God damn it.
って何よその顔。もしかしてこいつバカだとか思ってるでしょ。
Was she psychic or something? Psychic? Oh, Danganronpa reference! Okay.
お前な、そういうことは公僕に任せとけよ。なんで一女子高生が体張らなきゃならないんだよ。
そこはほら、私正義の味方だし。
Good for her.
前から思ってたけど、お前頭悪いよな。
She's not the brightest bulb. She's not the sharpest tool. She's not a lot of things.
何？ちょっとあんた失礼よ。
とにかく正義感もほどほどにしとけよな。
I didn't know what sort of person the murderer was, but it was probably safe to say that he was out of his mind if he was going around decapitating people. The average person would almost certainly struggle to maintain their cool when confronting a psychopath like that.
血まみれの凶器持ってニヤニヤ笑って、多分規制上げながら襲いかかってくるやつ相手に、お前の剣道がちゃんと発揮できるかどうかは微妙だぞ。自信あるのか？
She probably could. If she's that good at kendo, genuinely, she could probably kick his ass with a stick.
どうだろうね。確かにちょっと怖いかも。
だろ？
Most people have never had to fight for their lives, so it'd only be natural to freeze up when thrust into a situation like that. Only experience, or a natural predisposition for this sort of thing, could help you there. Not that being experienced with or possessing a gift for life or death struggles would be a good thing, mind you.
とにかく物騒なこと考えるなよ。また稽古続けるなら俺も一緒に残るから。
やだね。心配してくれてるの？
心配だよ。俺一人で帰るのマジ怖いし。
はあ、そうですか。いや、素直で結構だとは思うけどね。
That was a really good reversal.
でもさ、だいぶ前の調子が戻ってきたね。入院したばっかりの頃はなんだか幽霊みたいになっちゃってたけど。だからね。
Kasumi smiled softly, her expression feeling somehow mature.
今度何かあった時はちゃんと私に話してね。また前みたいに知らないところで無茶しちゃダメだよ。
Oh, Ren is gonna leave you in the dark. 100%. That's guaranteed.
約束。
She stuck out her pinky.
ほら。
お前、俺の母さんじゃないんだからさ。
そんなようなものじゃない。私に守ってほしいんでしょ。ね。
I wonder if it might not be better to just go along with her.
善処するよ。
よろしい。
Kazumi grabbed my hand and forcibly intertwined our pinkies. Never thought I'd be engaging at a pinky swear at this age. Don't you be dissing pinky swears. Pinky swears are the go of all swears, because you can't break a pinky swear. Next time something happens, be sure you tell me about it. I didn't want more stuff that I felt uncomfortable talking about to happen to myself. I was more than over that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I'd always seemed to have bad luck keeping these sort of promises. So this pinky swear instead seemed ominous to me. Like it was a portent of some misfortune to come. I couldn't shake that feeling for the rest of the night. After eating dinner, I headed straight to bed. And as soon as I fell asleep, it began. The crimson dream of the guillotine. Indeed, the night was red. A beast lurked in the city. Most beasts were of a nocturnal nature, so it was only natural the hunting of this one took place during the night. And thus, the night was stained crimson, with fountains of blood, with dripping pieces of meat, with shattered bones, with the fading embers of life. Thus, the beast satisfied its hunger, slaked its thirst in an endless cycle of limitless gluttony. It continued devouring its prey. However, there were also those that hunted such beasts, or perhaps it would be more accurate to describe this kind of phenomenon as mutual predation instead. The beast in the form of a young woman spoke, a grim expression on her face. She was one of the hunters, but she was fundamentally no different from her prey. Indeed, they were one and the same. They both had become beasts through some obscene method, and took to the hunt for the same reasons. Two beasts of the same forest. If there was a difference to be found between them, it was her youth. But in this case, youth did not equate to inexperience. She had killed far more than the older beast before her. Thus, she had no intention of pursuing her prey at the current time. For now, she would simply step back and observe the situation, waiting for her prey to build experience and mature. She yearned for the day her prey's fangs would grow sharp enough that she could no longer manage them. Let it be said, she was not overestimating her own strength. This was her earnest desire. The hunt would be but a mere farce if her prey was feeble enough to fall to her alone. After all, every one of the hunters was a monster, forged in the flames of hell. Her prey needed to be strong enough to hold its ground against all of them together.
まあ難しそうな話だけど
Her words earlier did not speak of her prey's arrival. Her comrades, the hunters, had arrived instead, and thus she understood. The odds of prey managing to reach her level were so low that they might as well have been zero. There was no one to be seen in the area. Her comrades hadn't made their presence known through sight or sound. Oh, one thing. See the CG? Nice CG. Her character design, a little... That midriff does not need to be there. What the fuck is this Aztec tower? What fucking weird playground? It's just a big, like, glooming tower. But she could feel them there. Even if one is asleep, he or she is likely to awaken if several people enter the room, simply from sensing their presence. This was a similar phenomenon. The room that was Swahara City suddenly felt very cramped. If we posited that the density of normal person's existence was 1, then the density of the two who had just arrived was more than 1,000. There could be no doubt that these monsters had devoured more than 1,000 human souls. These were man-eaters far beyond the level of any mere serial killer. They could no longer be called human in any sense of the word. Ah, this was perhaps to be expected. It meant only that they had come prepared. They had made effective use of the past 60 years, it would seem. She had no trouble telling exactly who had arrived. Who could forget such tainted, such utterly abominable souls as theirs?
まったく
Before the words, "These two are the absolute worst," could pass from her lips, the girl remembered that the descriptor, the absolute worst, applied to all of them just the same and held her tongue.
ともあれようこそシャンバラへ
To interrupt. That's her face, CG. Are these the super Nazis? I think these are super Nazis.
ようこそ。お待ちしていましたよ、お二人とも。
A man garbed in a priest cassock offered his greetings.
本当にお久しぶりです。米中尉にマレウス准尉。月並みですが、相変わらずのようですね。
His voice was calm, even comforting. In contrast, the two beings received his greeting, emanated a presence that could only be likened to that of a natural disaster. The sick stench of blood hung in the air. The pungent aroma of gunpowder filled the area. The entire world around them reeked with the rotten stench of murder. These were the odors of madness. These were the odors of calamity. These were the odors of demons. The beings gathered atop this bridge were without exception utterly removed from the constraints of normalcy. One of the two guests, a young man, sneered at the priest's words.
相変わらずってことは昔のまま進歩ねえって言いたいのかよ、クリストフ。言葉選ばねえと死ぬぞってね。
Oh, what is that, folks? Drum roll. Is that a SS? Yup. Finally, we get to the isekai super Nazis. The man's language could hardly be called refined, but he spoke with a grin. The priest returned his own faint smile. The man's skin was fair, too fair, to the point of being inhumanly pale, as if he was cut from wax. However, he did not give off the aura of weakness or sickliness. Far from it. He possessed a certain limber poise, almost reminiscent of a python or a great reptile. In
ご
contrast,
きげんよう神父様。あなたは本当に変わってないわね。少し怠けすぎなんじゃないかしら。
oh, sweet Jesus. Hold on. Let me exit out so you can see. That just looks like Ria's Gremory, except if she was a child. I Hunter. The sweet voice that resonated next belonged to a young woman, every bit as charming as her voice would suggest. She looked completely unfit to this sinister place. In that sense, she could have been said to give off the strongest impression of any of the creatures gathered atop the bridge. She served as an excellent example of the old adage that every rose had its thorns.
私はしばらく陰性していたものでしてね。まあ怠けているのは今に始まったことでもなし、一応それなりの理由もありますが、説明責任を求めますか？
Oh my sweet Jesus. That's a grown man and a little girl in Nazi outfits. Oh my god. She really does. She looks so much like Rias though.
いらねえよ。知った仲だ。堅苦しいのはやめようぜ。俺が知りたいのは一つだけだ。 今シャンバラには誰と誰が入ってる？
レオンハルト、ゾーネンキント、バビロンにトバルカイン、そしてあなたたちの計6名ですよ、米注意。私はあと 4,5 日の間ここを動けないものでしてね。
Oh my god.
なぜ？
年寄りが出しゃばるなと怒られたのですよ。
ああ？
The man's pale visage twisted in confusion. The girl, on the other hand, seemed to understand what the priest had meant.
クリストフ、あなたさっきレオンハルトって言ったわね。それはバルキュリアの抜け番かしら？
ええ、あなた方も面識はあるでしょう。あのお嬢さん、どうしてなかなか大したものになりましたよ。
へえ。
The two of them broke out into broad smirks. Fascinating. Most fascinating. A force to be reckoned with. Then, by all means.
二人とも
The priest, perhaps sensing the building uneasy atmosphere, continued with an authoritative tone.
分かっているとは思いますが、今黒煙卓に空きを作るわけにはいきません。それでは11年前の繰り返しです。たとえ新参でも未熟者でも黄色い劣等であろうとも、彼女の存在はいるのですよ。わかりますね。
Holy fuck! Did they genuinely just call an Asian person an inferior yellow monkey? You know what? I can respect being lore accurate.
それはもう分かってるわよ、当然じゃない。相変わらず心配性ね。だからここはせっかく女同士なんだし、あの子のことは私に任せていただきません？
いいじゃねえか。あんたもあんたで暇じゃねえだろ。これで残ってるのはシュピーネだけだが、あいつはいつ来る？
彼はもうしばらくかかるでしょう。
ん？何それ、気になるな。
おいマレウス、言ったろ、別にいいじゃねえか。大公殿が腹黒いことやっててくれりゃ、こっちもいろいろ手間が省ける。
掃除っていうか狩りでしょ。メルクリウスのクソ野郎が代理をよこしているんじゃなかったかしら。
順位、副首領閣下に対する不敬な物言いはあまり感心しませんね。
The priest reproached the girl's choice of words, but his tone made it clear he was doing that out of no more than mere formality. This Mercurius was clearly rather unpopular, but at the same time, it did not seem as if they were making light of him. Quite the opposite, in fact. They spoke of him with disgust, even with a hint of fear. This was a man so despised, even his comrades shunned his very existence.
ともあれ、副首領閣下は命役に従い、それを使わしているはずです。あなた方はまず彼を探してください。そう難しいことではないでしょう。
レオンは？あの子は協力してくれないの？
というか、この件に関しては彼女に一任しています。まあ、新兵に経験を積ませるという意味で顔を立ててやってください。
なるほど。
了解。楽しくなりそうよ。
では。
Priest's tone shifted. The two new arrivals knew it was time to cease with the charades. The look in their eyes grew serious, grim. The very atmosphere around them took on a grave intensity. These were no mere thugs, no mad dogs of war lost in their own power. These were soldiers. The Obsidian Round Table would tolerate no less. Why does it have to overglaze the super Nazis? Like, come on. The priest spoke.
あらゆる悪も、あらゆる罪も、あらゆる鎖も汝を縛れず、あらゆる禁忌に意味はない。汝の神、汝の主が、 汝をこの地へ導きたまう。汝はその手に剣を取り、主の敵を滅ぼし尽くせ。息ある者は一人たりとも残さぬよう、生ある者は一人残らず捧げるよう。男を殺せ、女を殺せ、老婆を殺せ、赤子を殺せ、犬を恐れてはならない。おののいてはならない。疑うことなどしてはならない。汝は騎士、獣の軍勢、神が許し、私が許す。汝の主が全てを許す。
I think you actually have to be sorry for what you're doing. I think like, yeah, God, I like murdered 1,000 people. Oopsies. And then he just forgives you.
獣の総我を自負する者よ。誉れ高きその名を唱えよ。
ビルヘルム・エーレンブルグ。
ルサルカ・マリーア・シュベーゲリン。
Oh, that's such a German name.
汝が名誉は忠誠なり。
我らが名誉は忠誠なり。
清掃13騎士団黒煙卓第3位、バレリア・トリファー、クリストフ・ローエングリーンの名において、ここに汝らを祝福する。
Wow. After a brief pause, the ceremony had drawn to a close. The three spoke in unison.
ジークハイル・ビクトリ
Oh, God, I forget about this Sig Heil. Der El D O in Shambhala. 6 of 13. Mephistophelies! Lambesh Company! Huh? Swastika 0 of 8. Chapter 1, Les Effants de la Punition, End. Alright, that was the third part of Dies Irae. Finally got to the Super Nazi part. Still a little nervous on what this game is going to be about, and not looking forward to the certain scenes that this edition gives you. But hey, it's the reason why it's free, so I'm not complaining. I think that's pretty much it. There might be... I might not post too much within the next 2 weeks. I'll still post like once or twice a week. But I'd prefer to wait till I get my mic stand so I can have my setup fully decked out and not as sketchy as it is right now. Pretty much it. See ya. How long was that session?